Good afternoon and welcome to this coffee break catch-up coming to you here from Scotland this afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Do let us know where you're watching from and indeed which language you are learning. We are using a little bit of a different setup today because I'm at home and I just want to make sure that everything is working. So as I say, do let me know by posting a comment to say that everything is fine, that you can hear me okay and that you can see me. My name is Mark Pendleton. I am your coffee break host, as you know, and I am here today to give you something of a coffee break catch-up. We're letting you know about what's happening with coffee break languages and indeed around the world, or in the countries where the languages that you are learning are spoken. So we should be able to bring some people onto the screen here. So we've got Mac joining us for the first time. Let me see that I can bring this on. There we have Mac joining us for the first time. You're very welcome, Mac. Really pleased to have you here. We also have got Carol, who's joining us from Canada. So if you're watching the broadcast, thank you, Carol, for letting us know that you're here. If you're watching the broadcast, let us know where you're watching from and indeed which language you're learning from. And once again, I hope that everything is working from a technical point of view and that you can all see me and hear me. Now, coming up in today's show, let me see, you should still be able to hear me. Yeah, hopefully. We have got, as usual, some coffee break updates. We have got a very interesting talking point this week. We're looking at the origin of words, and that is all about the subject of etymology. So we're going to be looking at that in just a few moments. And of course, as usual, we have our cultural roundup of the week, and we will be looking at some interesting things that are happening in and around the places where the languages that you're learning are spoken. Good to see. We also have some further listeners. We've got Barbara joining us. Lovely to see you here, Barbara. Got her here, and then we've got Andrew, who can hear us perfectly. Excellent, Andrew. And we've also got Sally joining us too, and I've got a thumbs up from Sally, so all is good. Okay, it is time to get on with the show, and we're going to begin, of course, as usual, with our coffee break news. Okay, so starting with our coffee break news today. First of all, we published our second episode of the Coffee Break Italian magazine podcast, and that went out on Monday. And this episode focuses on a beautiful area of Italy known as Il Gargano in the Puglia region. And Il Gargano, if you've ever visited there, you'll know how beautiful it is. And we're talking about that particular region in this week's episode of the podcast. So that's season 2, episode 1, season 1, episode 2, La Perla della Puglia. Now, we have also been busy on the blog this week because we've just launched an article all about the French of Quebec. Now, obviously, you'll know that Quebec is the French-speaking area of Canada, well, one of the French-speaking areas in Canada, and it is a huge area, a huge region. And in Quebec, one of the official languages, of course, French. And we're looking at how French is used in Quebec and differences between the French of Quebec and what we would call standard French. So that article you can find on the blog. If you've not already had a look at that, have a look at that if you're interested. And I'm sure you'll find that interesting. So that's on the blog. We've got the French of Quebec. We've also published our 1 Minute Japanese course onto our YouTube channel. So that's the full 10 lessons of 1 Minute Japanese. Our 1 minute courses are quick introductions to the language. So if you are interested in learning just the basics of a language, our 1 minute courses are perfect for that. So you can join us for 1 Minute Japanese over on our YouTube channel, and that's at youtube.com/coffeebreaklanguages. Now, also this week, we're doing something a little bit different in the office. We share our office areas with a number of other businesses, and over the past week, we've been doing a special event because this, in the UK at least, is Dementia at Work Awareness Week. Or Dementia Awareness in the Workplace Week. I think that's the official title. So what we've been doing is running a quiz at work, and we've prepared a couple of hampers, and there's a quiz and there's a treasure hunt game too. And we thought that it would be a nice thing to do to release that out, to make it more available to other people to join in. Obviously, there are a number of studies that have suggested that there is a link between the possibility of learning a language and engaging your brain to help slow down the onset of dementia. So this is a very important area for us, it's a very important cause for us, and for that reason it's one of the charities we've chosen to support. And this is very much internally, we're talking about in our office and working with our staff doing this kind of support. But we thought that it would be something that perhaps some of our Coffee Break community may be interested in being involved in. So what we've done for that, let me see if I can bring this in. What we've done for that is put together a version of the quiz that you can take part in. And basically that is going to be on the Coffee Break Academy tomorrow. And this quiz is a short quiz, and you can take part in the quiz and potentially stand a chance of winning a £50 gift voucher for the Coffee Break Academy. So if you are interested in that, then the links will be coming in the newsletter tomorrow morning. And you are very welcome to join us and help support this very valuable cause. Again, it's entirely optional. There is no necessity, no obligation to take part. It's just something that we thought that you may be interested in being involved in. So that is some of the things that have been going on internally for us in over the past few days in Coffee Break Languages. So let me see if we've got any more news. No, I think that is everything. That is all our Coffee Break news. So at that point, it's time to move on to our second area of the show, and that is our talking point. As I said, we've got an interesting talking point coming up today about etymology. However, if there are any new listeners who are just joining us, then please do let us know where you're watching from. Please let us know which language you're learning. And it's great to know that some of you are watching and enjoying this live show. Of course, if you're watching the replay, then you're very welcome too. We're delighted that you're able to watch us in any way, whether it's on Facebook Live or indeed following up on YouTube or on our website. For now, let's move on to our talking point of this week. Okay, our talking point this week, I think, is a fascinating subject. It's the subject of etymology and where the words that we use every day come from. So for this, what we're going to do is start with a video to give you some ideas about what etymology involves. So just to start things off there, etymology, the study of the origins and the development of words through the ages. So today we're going to be looking at some of the interesting aspects of how the English language has developed and how it has been developed based on various influences that have come from other languages over the course of time. Sorry, my microphone has just dropped here. I think we're okay. So let us bring back in our slides and we will come on to this first slide. English we're going to do a little bit of history here, so I hope that's okay. We're going to go through it very quickly, though. English is an Indo-European language, and it is part of a whole family of languages. And you can see there we've got languages in different groups. So we've got Celtic languages, Italic languages, Germanic languages, Balto-Slavic languages, and so on, in all the different families of the Indo-European languages. And if we take that one stage further and focus on Germanic, and Germanic can be split into West, North, and East Germanic, and you'll see there that one of the languages listed there in West Germanic is English, along with Frisian, and then we've got Flemish, Dutch, Afrikaans, and then German and Yiddish. So these are the languages that are related, if you like, in the same family as English. If we take it back to the Indo-European stage, then that's like the grandfather and the great-grandfathers or the great-grandmothers and so on of the language. But if we're focusing in on English, then we can see that English is a West Germanic language. So that is why lots of our words are linked to words in German. For example, we look at the word for dog, Hund. That sounds like hound in English. Sleep, schlafen, and so on. And similar words in other Germanic languages. However, perhaps the most interesting thing about English is the way in which English has been also influenced by many other languages over the course of history. So if we look at our next slide, let me have a look if I can bring it in. There's our next slide. So over the course of history, so many different groups have had a role to play in how the English language has developed. You can see there from around 1000 BC when the Celts were in the United Kingdom. Of course, it wasn't United Kingdom then, but the languages of the Celts obviously had a role to play in the influence on how English developed. Then, of course, the Romans were in what's now the UK, and their language of Latin was influencing also how things developed. But then it became with the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes invasions and so on, where Anglo-Saxon and Danish were influencing the language spoken in this area. Of course, then we had the Vikings, and Old Norse was having an influence, and the Normans and Northern French became a huge influence on English. And then through the Renaissance, Latin and Greek and French and Italian all had a role to play in influencing English. So that's why English, although it's a Germanic language, it has been influenced by all of these other languages. Now, this happens in many languages. Many languages are influenced by other languages in the surrounding area, or languages spoken by peoples who live in the country where the language is spoken. Obviously, this is a kind of a simplified version of looking at things. But it's just to say that English as a language has this fascinating, rich history of other languages influencing and other peoples influencing the language. And of course, that's still happening every day. We still get new words into English which come from other languages, and that will continue, and hopefully it will continue, and that's how languages develop over the course of time. But this leads to how certain words are the way they are in English. So let's take a look at some of these words. We saw some of them in our video, but if we take a look at some of the other ones that we've got here, for example, we've got a word that is close to our hearts in Coffee Break. It's the word cappuccino. Cappuccino, of course, is an Italian word, but it literally is linked to the Capuchin monks, because the cappuccio was the little hood that the monks wore. And the reason the cappuccino got its name was because the brown of the cappuccino was similar to the brown of the monks' habits that they were using. So that's how the cappuccino coffee got its name. It's based around the idea of Capuchin monks. Let's take a look at another example. Steak. The word steak it comes from the Old Norse steak, meaning to fry. So they were frying a piece of meat. This is how a steak got its name. And even in modern day Norwegian, for example, steke means to fry. So we can hear that word in use in different languages. And it also is a good way to remember, well, in one language, when you're learning a piece of vocabulary, maybe there's a story that will help you understand why the word is the way it is. Let's look at a couple of others. We've got, let me see... We've got whiskey. We're staying with food and drink here. And whiskey is from Scots Gaelic, ushkiva, meaning water of life, like aquavit. And I think we've got one more. We've got jungle. So jungle is actually a Persian word meaning wilderness or forest, and yet it's a word that we use now in modern day English for the word jungle. We use that jungle word every day. Well, maybe not every day, depends where you are, I suppose. But it's a very common word in everyday English. So what about you? Have you come across any words that you are interested in finding out why they are what they are? We saw in the video muscle, which was linked to little mice crawling under your skin, which is a little bit creepy. And we also saw telephone, of course, coming from Greek. So if you've got any ideas about how words came into being in English, then do share them in the comments. I would love to hear what you've got to say. Let me check one little thing here. I think that is us for this section. No, it's not. We've got one other thing to share, because the reason I started thinking about this week is because I've been listening to a new podcast, and this is a podcast from two well-known presenters in the UK. If you've not come across Giles Brandreth or Susie Dent before, then you are definitely missing out, because they're two fantastic presenters, and it's definitely well worth having a listen to this podcast. Something Rhymes with Purple by Giles Brandreth and Susie Dent. You can find it on Acast, on Spotify, on iTunes Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the usual places that you get your podcasts. It's just something I've been listening to, and I thought as language lovers you would also enjoy that. So that is our talking point for this week. Let us know in the comments, or indeed afterwards, if you're watching this afterwards, what you think about language origins and etymology. Okay, it's time for our cultural review of what's happening this weekend. If you're looking for some inspiration as to where you can go to practice the languages that you're learning, where you can go this weekend. Now, I should also say that the information about these places and these festivals that are happening this weekend all goes out to you in our Coffee Break Catch-Up newsletter. And the Coffee Break Catch-Up newsletter will go out on a Friday morning here in the UK, so you'll get it wherever you wake up tomorrow morning. And in the Catch-Up newsletter, we've got all the links. So that will be the links for our latest Coffee Break episodes, the links for the Dementia Awareness quiz that we're doing, and also the links for the cultural items. So if you head to radiolingua.com/newsletter, you'll be able to get all of the information there. But let's bring in today's cultural roundup. So that's our podcast. Well, it's not our podcast, it's another podcast. But here is our cultural roundup. And I've just noticed the date on the bottom of that is wrong. I do apologise. Let's travel first of all to the south of Spain, to Malaga. Now, Malaga is the location for our En Marcha podcast, and actually the podcast episode that's going out tomorrow is all about art and cultural regeneration in Malaga. So one of the places that we visited when we were preparing for this podcast was the Picasso Museum, and there's actually a new it's coming to its end, the exhibition in the Picasso Museum, and it's the Olga Chochlova exhibition. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Olga Chochlova was a ballet dancer who was one of, Picasso was married to Olga, and she was the inspiration for many of his works. And so in the Picasso Museum at the moment, there's an exhibition of the works relating to Olga Chochlova, and you can check that out until the 2nd of June. Let's look at another cultural thing here. What have we got? Oh, this is not working. Yeah, here we go. So the Cerevisia Craft Beers Festival in Fondo in Italy is happening this weekend too. So if you're into craft beer, then you can check that out. We also have the Lange Nacht der Kirchen in Salzburg on the 24th of May. So that's tomorrow evening. Now, what is the Lange Nacht der Kirchen? Well, sometimes, in fact, we've mentioned it before, the long night of the museums, or I'm not quite sure if that's what it's called in English, but it's when museums open longer and there are visits and special events happening in museums. But in Salzburg, there are lots of churches in Salzburg, some of them very, very beautiful. And tomorrow evening, you can go to the churches, and they're open until midnight, and they will be doing special tours. They'll be lit up specially with candles and everything like that. And you're able to experience some of that in Salzburg this weekend. So that's tomorrow evening, the Lange Nacht der Kirchen in Salzburg, Austria. And then one final event, and this is an excellent event, something very exciting, and it's the Monaco Grand Prix. So the Formula One racing event this coming weekend from the 23rd tomorrow until the 26th. I remember, and this is something we mentioned in En Route too, we actually went to the E-Prix, the electronic cars Grand Prix for En Route, but I remember having spent some time in Monaco and in Menton earlier, about 25 years ago now, and when I was there I was very lucky to watch the Monaco Grand Prix from a friend's balcony on the rocher above the port, basically, to enjoy the sights and sounds of the Monaco Grand Prix. So that's happening this weekend. You can enjoy that in Monaco. That, I think, is almost it then. We'll come back to that in just a moment, but I do want to share some of the comments that we've been having during the show. So we've got Susan, who has joined us, saying, I managed to join in today from Lincolnshire. Fantastic, Susan, and you're on the Coffee Break French course. Great to have you here. Stacey is joining us from Ohio, and you're also joining us, learning French with us, as is Barbara Moore. And Barbara Huck, is saying, as a speech-language pathologist, I've always been interested in the research for my students. Now that I'm retired, it's fascinating still for my own language learning challenges. These talking points are so interesting. Thank you, Barbara. We're delighted that you're enjoying that. We've got Louise, who's joining us from Houston and is learning French. And Mac is asking, what about kangaroo? I once read that it came from the Aboriginal response to a British sailor's asking, what's that called? The answer meant, I don't know. I like that story. I really like that story. Well, we'll need to find out if that one's true, Mac. I'll definitely look into that. And Louise is asking about the etymology of Nixon, Dutch, so we'll find out a little about that too. Okay, there are a couple of things to mention. First of all, we wanted to double check that you're aware of something that we do every Monday, both on our Facebook page, on Twitter, and on our Instagram feed. And that is our Monday motivation. It's the start of the week, and we always feel that that's a good time to share some motivation, hopefully to inspire you with your language learning. This week we had a lovely photo from Venice, and we've put that photo along with some music and shared some of your motivational thoughts about a particular quote that we saw. So here is a little review of Monday's motivation, just to help you get some ideas, some inspiration for your language learning. So that is our Monday motivation. Do join us every Monday for that, and share your comments and your thoughts about whatever it is the motivational quote is that we're sharing. It was really nice to see some of your stories there about how you've managed to get over certain challenges with your language learning. Now, there are a couple of other things to mention. First of all, of course, we are running our ongoing monthly mug competition, as it were. We need you to send us a postcard. Let us know about your language learning experiences in a postcard. And it's so nice to see all these postcards coming in. We have had quite a few over the past couple of weeks, and it's really lovely to read your stories. But if you would like to stand a chance of winning one of these mugs, just send a postcard to this address, 100 West George Street, Glasgow, G21PP, the United Kingdom. And that is where we will receive your postcard. And we will be very happy to get that postcard. And as I say, you may be in with a chance of winning a mug. We hopefully next week will be drawing the results for our May mug competition. I say hopefully because next week we're actually going to be, well, some of us are going to be in Milan, Italy on the Thursday. We're actually heading over to Italy to film some content for Coffee Break Italian. So Francesca and I will be there, and we're hoping that we will be able to get to a place where we'll have fast enough internet access to do a coffee break catch-up live from Italy. It is possible that that might not happen, so we apologise in advance, but we'll do our best to go live in some way. It might not be the full production as normal with all the content on screen and all that kind of thing, but we'll do our best to do something next week. We're really looking forward to the trip, but there are a few challenges in terms of doing our live on the Thursday afternoon. So hopefully we will see you next week. If we don't see you next week, then we will announce the winners of our mug competition the following week. However, we also plan to announce the winners of our Dementia Awareness quiz next week too. So all being well, we'll be able to announce the winners next Thursday from Milan, Italy. That, I think, is everything that I've got for you today. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Once again, if you are watching on the replay, then we're really looking forward to reading your comments afterwards. Thank you to those of you who have joined us live today. It's always great to know that there are people watching and to share some of what we've been working on with you, and also to have a chat about different aspects of language learning. And today, as I say, we've been looking at etymology. But that's it for this week. Thank you very much indeed for joining us again. And I always end with a thank you and a goodbye in a different language. I can't remember what languages I've done recently, so I will just say in Swedish today, tack och hej då.